Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we're going to give you kind of like a double header with this video. So after doing the lift video, we had a bunch of questions about how the lift worked. We realized that we didn't really show in detail how the lift actually picks up on the car, how it works. So people were asking about the motor and the switch and different things we use there. I don't think we fully showed that all assembled. So we're going to show you a little bit on the lift, and then we also realized we've never really showed the underside, the bottom of the DeLorean Roadster. So we're going to lift this up, show you the bottom of the DeLorean Roadster. I haven't fully looked at the car to see what modifications were done. So it'll be kind of interesting to show you guys a real old hot rod that was built probably back in the 40s or very early 50s, and the modifications that they did. We can show you guys a real car and how that stuff was done. Should be pretty fun. So we're going to go to the front of the car, show you guys how this thing lifts first. Alright, so this right here is the fixture in which grabs onto the car to lift it. So there's basically two I-beams that run front to back on this, and this fixture here, this is kind of the handle side, so I have it flipped opposite here, upside down rather. And this piece here, you can see there's little channels that are on there that actually sit on the I-beam, and that's what this slides on. And then these little V's here actually sit in the straight axle, so they're made to sit in the front. In a straight axle car, this actually kind of sits in the I-beam section. In the back, it actually hits right on the axle tube, and that's where it kind of sits in place and it lifts on that. So what you're supposed to be able to do on stock vehicles, it isn't going to work on lower vehicles, we just figured out, that's why we have two jacks here, is you can just slide this in and out on the I-beam, and you can kind of like you can slide it out, roll the car off, and then slide it back in. On this one, there is still this handle here, and you can pull on this handle and actually flip this part down. So when you're sliding in and out, you can have it flip down, slide it under, flip it up. When everything's lubed and oiled, it works pretty well. The problem we found, like I mentioned, is that this part is too high. So because we already this car has a drop axle on it and we have small front tires on it, it doesn't fit under there, so it's kind of useless. So you still have to jack the car up and slide this under, which is just you know, one of those things with this was meant to sit on a completely stock car that sat quite a bit higher off the ground, and with these hot rods it won't work. So I'm going to throw this one back on and we'll show you guys a little closer how this will fit up in there. Alright, so this thing sits, we just got to get it in, but it sits up over this like that, and it fits over the I-beam. It's actually pretty tight, so you can see why the paint doesn't last on these things. So this sits in like this, and what you're supposed to be able to do is just, you know, pull it in and out. This would obviously be all greased up, that's why this stuff's usually very grimy, because we just have paint on paint here. But if you would glue it up, you could pull it out quite easily, especially if you were taking cars on and off. But this fits over like this, so we could slide it under, and then it sits under that I-beam there, and you can see we have the jack on it there. Okay, and then this side will, not exactly as quick as that. Hey, we're in the pocket.
That lift goes down a lot faster.
that jack goes down a little faster.
Nice.
Alright, so we're in, so we'll show you the back side, which is already still set up from when we lifted before.
Can you grab the light for me, please? Actually, I can see fine because of the... Ow. So this one's down off the ground right now. As you can see, the height difference is quite drastic. There's like 6 inches between the lift and the rear right now.
So this, obviously, with the tire height difference and the way the car sits and where it lifts, that is one of the things that's not as good. You probably have to put risers on it if you wanted to really, if you had much more of a drastic difference, because the car does sit kind of downhill. But basically, same thing on this thing here, we could just slide out if we want to take it out. So when we pull it off, luckily with this car, we can just pull it right off the lift in the back, but you would still in the front hit. So we have to, when we were pulling this car out of the shop in Detroit, we had that problem where we didn't take this out, and we got the rear of the car off, and we got to the front axle, and we were like catching on it. So we had to get this thing off. So it's easier to just pull this off right from the get-go. Back in the day, the car would have sat higher. You could have just driven it, you know, right over top.
Or flipped it up or down.
Yeah, exactly. So for us, we're just going to pull it. We can just pull the whole thing out. It's easy enough.
And they're not extremely heavy. They're probably 50 or so pounds.
If you want, I can I'll run the lift up and we can just show down how this actually grabs under there on that side. There we go.
That's good. Just so we can show. There you can see she's grabbed on. Ready to go all the way up?
Yeah.
Over here I am, yep.
I gotta go up just a hair more here. Oh, that
Yep.
just dropped in on its own.
Yes, it did. All right, let her down.
There you go, cable pressure is off.
Yep.
So people were asking about this lift, though, the cables breaking and the pressure on the cables. Really, these cables only have pressure on them, like, is that not like?
No, I'm saying
Oh.
that's why there's no pressure.
Yeah,
there's
so
locks.
really the lift only has pressure on those cables for like the, 2 minutes it takes to go up and down?
No different than a hydraulic lock.
Yeah, so it is much the same where you're going up and down, and it has cable pressure on it when it's lifting up. When it goes down, we believe there's like a clutch or something inside the gearbox, because when it goes down, it doesn't just free spool when you let the lock loose. So I'll lift it up a little bit, and we'll show you over here where this lock handle is. So we let the pressure down on the lift, and then right here there's this handle that's spring loaded, and you push up on it, and it has rods that will turn all the locks. So we'll go up. So we're off the locks there. So now we can push like this. This lets everything down. It lets everything loose. And then you just drop it down. So once you get past, you just let this lever loose, and it kind of just drags basically on it. So
Yeah, we're slowly removing paint.
we're already removing paint from
Off
that,
the inside.
which is fine. But that's how that basically works. So when it goes up, it is putting pressure on it. So when we go up, it should just basically fall in. Now we still do have to lube everything a little bit more to get it to work more free, but we should be able to. Whoop. So you can see it just fell right in there because it's got that spring on there. Then if everything's level, you should be locked in, and we can just drop it down. Are they all
Yeah.
good in the back there?
Yeah, this is actually the lowest point on the lift.
So-
We got to do some adjustments.
Yeah, so these cables have adjustments on them to adjust the so that it sits even. We found that just with the way my shop floor is, what I thought was, right by myself wasn't necessarily correct. So,
Yep, there you go.
so everything's
Cable
loose.
loose.
Now we're good. Lifts up. So we are, yes, going to be putting studs in the ground. That's like one of our next projects, but we wanted to.
Bring the hammer drill next week.
Yes, we'll bring that. That's one of the next things. We want to get all this working up and down.
Oh, we could show them this. What we did. So this is a Harbor Freight, just 220,
Yeah,
1 horsepower.
Yeah, we ended up getting their smaller 220 motor because the RPMs of the other motor was
1700 RPM versus their big one, which we put on your grinder.
it's like 3,800.
Yeah, it's
and it
double,
was
36.
36. So it was a little much. We ordered the Lovejoy connection off of MSC or one of those sites, and we ended up having to machine those bolts at the back there, right in there, because they were actually hitting the Lovejoy. So I machined those bolts down, and I turned down the back of the one Lovejoy that was against the motor because it was so thick. I took material off so we could slide it on enough, get the grub screw on. Now we did find, as we were doing the final setup for everything, just during this video actually, I didn't countersink forgot to countersink the grub screw so that it would actually dig down into that shaft. And we were running the thing after Mike Wire, like, what's going on? It's not working. The motor's spinning. Well, the grub screw just took the little point, like, wore off. So we took a drill, drilled into the shaft. Now the grub screw runs in. It should be good. This is just a switch right from MSC, but it's like an old school looking switch Mike found.
Yeah, so I've used these before in my factory job in the past. So this is just a reversing switch. You know, it looks new, but it's very ancient technology.
Yeah, so this is really cool. It just looks correct on there.
I got to fix the wiring. It does backwards of what it says.
Yeah, so Mike's got to switch a wire. It was just my OCD was having issues there. So he's going to switch it so that when I run it forward, it goes up and reverses down. Just so my brain can work that. But so basically you can see underneath here.
Let's get some lights set up quick.
Yeah.
And we'll show the bottom of the car and how the lift works.
Yeah. All right, so we showed a little bit in the other video, but this is some of the neat stuff this car has. I already knew, but wanted to show a little closer on video. So the axle number 1, I believe, is an old Dago style axle. That name of type of axle is where they're like hammer drop. They actually use like a power hammer to like smash the axle. You could tell like it's all smashed flat in here and also in the top here. So as they would heat it and stretch it, they would smash it with a hammer. Like a power hammer or just a normal hammer. I'm not quite sure, but I think they use like a blacksmith type hammer, and it actually smashes it and squishes it. So that's kind of that look. That's that like iconic old drop axle. It was like one of the first big guys to do it. Was the Dago axle. So that has that, which is really neat. It has like these Z'd shock links, and I sort of referenced it in one of the in the video we were working on the Stroll Coupe. This has these little shortened links on it. This one's actually popped out here. The rubber went bad, but it has these links that are shortened there. It has a little steering hoop, which is so common that you see now. It has 39, 40 juice brakes on it, the backing plates that are on it. The wishbones are split, so it's got these cool mounts that are back here. There's like a thick plate welded on behind another plate that they actually have tapered for a tie rod. Then up here in the front, we can actually tell by the way that this is angled, they actually did what we show a lot of times. They cut the axle right here, set the caster, and they welded it back together. So whoever was building this car definitely knew what they were doing, because they were actually like, all these modifications that had become commonplace weren't so common back then with backyard builders. So the fact that the stuff in the front end is pretty good. Has a basically stock spring here, doesn't have a reverse side spring.
Looks like it's got a full spring pack too.
Yeah, pretty much. Does look pretty thick there. The cross member looks all stock. It looks like the frame is like crusty, but it's kind of like the Stroll Coupe was the same way, where it's like it's crusty, but it's not like super pitted. It's just like it's mainly all the like paint and stuff that's like here, you know, it's just like falling off. Great.
Jeff literally just swept the floor.
So that is there. This is the mounts that they had for the brake lines. This is one thing that we talk about quite often. I like using the copper nickel brake lines when I make brake lines on these vehicles, when we're redoing them, because it looks like the old days when they would put copper lines on here. So this is just normal copper tubing with compression fittings on there for brake lines. Back in the day, that was normal place. That's what people did. Sure, it worked. We know better these days. So that's why I like to use that copper nickel line, because it will age kind of like this and get a similar color, and it just looks like the same thing without, you know, having the issue of the safety issue with that. So this thing had juice brakes on it. Obviously, we want to redo that copper line as well as everything else. We could see, probably you could tell a little. If I can get the light under there a little better, we can see all the engine mounts there. So we talked about the engine mounts. So originally the engine mounts would have been here. Yeah, close your mouth under there. So the original engine mounts would have been here, where it would have mounted. And then they have an engine mount here, which is where we actually have the engine currently, which seems to work for a 59AB engine, because we could see here that the water pumps line up perfectly with the 32 radiator. So we could tell that at one point it had a 59AB style engine in it, because everything fits up. We actually used the rubber mounts that we found in the trunk. So those fit up there, but there was something else in this thing at some point that the engine was there. So it was the engine was set back, or there was something with engine mounts that were shorter. We're not quite sure. The only thing we were thinking was that there were an overhead valve engine in this at some point. They used like a Hurst mount where it put it back here. could have been something like the old Cadillac engines that they actually had like a mount. I think there was some of the adapters that would mount off to the side here. Maybe a small block Chevy, hard to say, but some of those adapters were probably for that. Because the
K-member is not cut.
the K-member is not cut, which is very uncommon in these cars. Usually guys just, when they change transmissions, they would actually, cut these up. So this still has the stock K-member in it. The only real modification is that they drilled and modified 4 juice brakes on it. So they use the stock pedals, but they actually have the juice brakes set up on it. So we're trying to move our light around so you guys can see. So they have a
Oh yeah.
They have the, an early master cylinder, like a 40 Ford style master cylinder, 39, whatever. And master cylinder on there, and they just drilled holes in there, and they have an adaptation that they did there. I just quickly have just some bolts run in to mount the transmission when we were trying to figure out what it had in it. It is a little crusty in here for sure, but I think...
Yeah, look at the torque tube above you. It's got some barnacles on it.
Yeah, it gets worse as it went back, because right here where I'm standing, you can see there's like no floor.
Oh, look.
Yikes. So this is where the majority of the damage occurred, because this is where the roof was leaking directly on the seat bottom. So yeah.
Actually, it's not terrible.
It's pretty terrible. I mean, that's metal coming off of that. So that is not good. Oh, careful. So all this gross stuff is not.
Brooke is going to be very upset when you bring this to end of blast.
So yeah, this thing we're definitely gonna blast. You can see the muffler that's just like falling off.
We actually had to cut this one off.
Yeah, we had to cut this one off because it was jammed in. You could see back here they actually cut the cross member to fit the dual exhaust up.
Yeah.
Here, I'll move the light so you can see. See that? You can see they just like torched out that hole there. This side's a square hole. And then we have
some type of hose.
I think that was the fuel line coming from the tank, I believe.
There is a hole in the trunk. Or no, this still has a stock tank.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what that line was for, but I believe that was for the fuel line that's in there. You can probably tell by where it runs up to. It's cut right here. So this might have went up under the dash where the fuel pump was, possibly. Looks like it still has the stock rear in it. In the back here, again, copper line. The brake with the juice brakes on it, we noticed that it's turned. I'm not sure. I've seen that before. I don't really know the answer. I think that might be to clear things, but maybe it's how it worked with the way the 32 rear with how it bolted up. I don't know the answer for that actually. In the rear, we see it has reverse eye rear spring, and there's a number of leaves taken out of it already. So that's why the thing probably sits as well as it does. Because it's already got the reverse eye on there. So it's kind of interesting. They didn't do anything in the front other than the drop axle, but in the rear they actually put a reverse eye on it. So that's pretty cool. It's already got some drop to it. I wouldn't do much to the rear of this thing. It actually sits pretty sweet. I would just like to go down a hair in the front. So yeah, otherwise it's all pretty good. The gas tank is like gone. That's like our gas tank drain is just like totally rotted out. So the gas tank's pretty much probably junk or needs to have extensive work done to it. I did get another gas tank with this that had the neck welded on. So this actually has a neck that's welded on or they welded on a threaded portion for this cap here. So this is actually a modification they did.
Pressurized for the fuel pump.
Yeah, so they actually had this pressurized and they welded or brazed that on there. So that's pretty cool. I have another neck that has that on that. So we definitely want to leave this on here. So whatever I do, even if I put another tank in, I may put this little section here to keep this cap because it's a big part of the history of the car. But we'll definitely have to do something with the gas tank. You can see this panel here that they put in. It's hard to see, but behind there's little tiny light bulbs that they have stuffed in behind there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could see 2 little tiny light bulbs on either side that are stuffed in there. And this panel, plastic, has actually got little screws that go up underneath. So it'll be kind of interesting to take this apart and see how this was made. It feels like there's like round bar stock that they rolled this and welded right to the edge of it to give it strength all the way around. Then they just bolted in here somehow. So I'm kind of interested to see how they made this. This is a pretty neat piece that's on the car. After Jack got the car, we noticed in the old photos, some of the ones we have, that the car didn't have these like Nerf bars on it, I think, when he got it. But then we have later photos that Ron's family, who we bought this from, showed us photos of when he first got it. They found in some of his stuff, and the thing has white walls on it. These Nerf bars have appeared. It has a dropped headlight bar on it, and a couple of other things. But when the photos we got from Jack and his family when he first got the car, it has an undropped headlight bar, doesn't have these Nerf bars on it. So it's kind of neat how the car, over the years, there was a couple, short period of time, a couple of changes that were made to the car. But when he first got it, it didn't have a dropped headlight bar, it didn't have these on it. But again, we're going to be bringing this car back to basically the photos of when Jack had it. I think is kind of the sweet spot. I think the car looks really cool. So that's why we put the black walls back on it. I'm probably going to leave these Nerf bars on because I think it's a neat little thing that was made. It's just so common that you saw that on these, and it may be something they had to do for just safety. Like in his area, he may have had that. It has the Michigan plate on it that's still on it from when Jack was driving it. That was never taken off. So that's pretty cool. We may try and find a way to incorporate this. I'm going to actually try and look if I can get a personalized Pennsylvania plate that has the same number on it. And I'll just keep it in the car, and when I get pulled over, I'll just be like, just going to a show. Here's the...
Yeah.
Don't watch this, police officers. It's totally legal. So yeah, that's one of the plans. 39 taillights. Those are really cool. And you can see that they actually welded. So like these rear frame horn covers are stock, and then they actually welded the roll pan onto those. So you can see here it's just like a stock cover that came on them, the frame rail cover, and then it's welded right in here. So it was welded like underneath, and then it's probably welded right along here. The gas welded in, but it's really hard to see where they welded it. So again, whoever did the work on this car was either somebody that hired one of the higher end builders back in the day, or it was somebody who had quite a bit of skill that they were doing this type of work. So the frame is crusty, rusty, but I think it's something that we can definitely save. It's not too bad underneath. One thing that I think I am going to change on the car is it has the original 32 rear in it, which probably has 411 gears in it. I think I'm going to put a quick change under the car. I think it will fit with everything that's done to the car. So I have to see, we may have to change some things then with the rear spring and stuff like that may cause problems with that. So we may end up going a different direction and just putting another rear that has better gears in it. Not quite sure yet, but that's some of the stuff I would like to do to make it a little more drivable, because 411 gears is really tough to drive around. You're doing like 45 miles an hour and you're winding the engine out. So
should put a LeBaron quick change in it. Mounts
go on the front. Ooh, that would be kind of cool. So yeah, so that's kind of the underside of the car. It gives you guys a little better idea of what it looks like. Showed you guys how the lift works. It's kind of cool. So this thing's gonna sit on the lift for now until we get time to get working on it, but it's really cool to have this operating with the car on it as we found it. So that is a quick little update on the 32 DeLorean Roadster. A little more peek into what it looks like and some of the modifications, and show you guys how the lift works a little bit better. So let us know what you think of how the car looks underneath down below. Thanks guys, catch you later.